All right, welcome in everyone. American and Leeds Wednesday morning podcast. Hope you're all doing really well this day. Got the throwback team here with Ger, Michael, and Alex. So good to reunite with you guys. I mean, I had a crazy year last year, so it's good to kind of catch up and just reestablish this connection. And we'll see where it goes throughout the year. But really appreciate both of your guys, um, you know, takes on Leeds United. I think you're real balanced, well thought out. So always thought that this worked really well. So I just want to thank you both for coming back on. If you don't know him, Ger, Ger Lynch on Twitter, Leeds United The View. He is one of the biggest, if not the biggest channel in Leeds United content creation world. He is he does daily news, and I mean, you've got to know Ger. If you don't, please do like and subscribe to Ger. And then Michael Maynard. Michael is a Leeds United fan hailing from Canada. You've done some work on writing the Gary Kellys. You've done some other work. We originally connected through Roaring Peacock podcast, so shout out to them. And good to have you, Michael.
Yeah, good to be back on.
All right, so we are embarking on the championship season 2 in the championship after we reached 90 points in our first campaign. Obviously, it was kind of an outlier and anomaly about what happened last year, but let's go into, because we could go into last season and unpack that, but I don't think we really should go there. Let's unpack a little bit of this off season, this transfer window. How would you rate that it's going, and how, what do we need? Obviously, that depends on if there's anything else that's going to leave, but what would you say we would need the most if you had to pick one or two positions? Let's start off with Michael.
Yeah, I think the window's going all right so far. We've got about a month left. I know matches are obviously starting very soon this weekend, but I think we're okay. I am certainly interested to see how the returning fellas go, assuming they both stay. I don't know. Keep hearing that Max Fober might leave still, but who knows where that will go. But I think it's so far so good. I know there's been a lot of grumbling about the fee that we got for Crescencio Somerville. And then, there's rumblings and stuff too about, maybe that was because there was a clause, and who knows what the clause said. I think that's probably true. There was some sort of clause. It seems like a not quite so straightforward kind of clause. It seems a little bit complicated. And if in fact it was, then it would have probably been put in when he signed his contract a couple of years ago, at which point it was actually a great deal. Like, you can never really predict with absolute certainty if a player is going to take off the way that he did. So did we end up losing a little bit on that deal that we might have gotten to sort of in a free market bidding sort of situation? Yeah, maybe, but I'm not overly concerned. It's like £5 million here and there. We're not going to spend it all right now anyway. A lot of it's going to pay off debts or whatever that we already have. So I'm not gonna stress about it. I know a lot of people have been stressing about it. I'm not gonna stress about it. I think in terms of incomings, I think we're still light on a fullback in the fullback situation. I think if we can get someone in that can sort of play either side, a little bit of versatility, as opposed to one who's just going to be a specialist on one side or the other, I think that would be helpful. And then, I think we still need sort of a creative attacking midfielder, someone who can do that. Because we have, like I said, we have Aronson coming back, and I know that he can play in the 10, but I think he's not a creative player. He's more of a get the ball and drive with it kind of guy. So I think we'd still need someone who can do a more of a creative role rather than a transitional kind of player. I'm quite happy with. I mean, I know we've often talked about, strikers and stuff, and I know a lot of people may be a little nervous about putting too much weight on Mateo Joseph. I'm not worried. I think the kid can handle it personally. I think he's gonna be fine.
Yeah, Mateo, there's a baseball manager that I used to follow that said the lights aren't too bright for this kid. Or
Yeah.
when they would just throw a kid a chance. And that's what it feels like with Mateo. Like you put him in at Stamford Bridge, you start him, the lights aren't too bright, he scores 2 goals. He's been kind of on fire in the preseason. Ger, over to you. I mean, what do you think about the window, the kind of off season so far, and what would you say that we need going forward?
Yeah, I think Michael's bang on the money as he usually is. It's been really good so far, probably about a 6 out of 10, because there's just those couple of gaps that you really want to fill and make sure you've got cover. You don't want to repeat the sins of the past by thinking you've got enough, and then you get an injury and you don't have enough in that area, causes you problems down the line. Yeah, a fullback similar to Michael, I think some versatility there would be really, really good. Or you could go a different direction, bring in a young up-and-coming left back that is maybe okay to learn from Junior for a year, and then maybe when Junior's contract expires next season and moves on, you've got a ready-made kind of player to step into those shoes should you go up. Be tricky to get. It's not easy, especially to get a player who's willing to sit on the bench and get small amounts of minutes. But I think if you can get the fullback sorted, you're covered. You've got Sam then who can do a bit of both. You want depth there, and you want players that are comfortable playing in those positions. Centre midfield as well. Yeah, I think a good box-to-box 8 would be nice in there as well. Someone who can drive forward, someone who can get you a couple of goals from midfield. I've really liked what I've seen of Joe Rothwell so far, just in how fast he moves the ball and how fast he restarts it when the ball is around him. And I think that's a big tempo changer for it this year versus last. My biggest criticism of us last season, where when the tempo was high, we were really, really good. But when we slowed it down, we were a very average looking team at times and couldn't break teams down. I think someone like Rothwell or another box-to-box player who's tempo orientated. And Brendan brings that as well, because I was smiling when Michael was saying what kind of player he was, because I thought you were going to go in the line of he runs around a lot. And I think at times there's a lot of benefit to a player who runs around a lot, especially from a pressing perspective. So, yeah, that as well. And then I think a replacement for Crees needed, arguably probably a replacement for Anthony as well on the bench. But then we've got young Sam Chambers coming through who looks decent. So, yeah, I think if you get 3 right now, assuming nobody else leaves, I'd be shocked if Fober is still here come the end of the window. The Gladbach sporting director, Verkus, is twerking to get him to come back to Gladbach. He said he will wait till late in the window to talk to him, that he might become available again. So that's hanging around for a while. But if you could keep him, ignoring the emotional side of a player walking out on Leeds, he's a very good defender. And that's a very good defense. It's probably the best in the league. If you add a fullback and you keep Fober, that's an incredibly strong backline. Again, whether you like people or not, on footballing ability, it's a very, very solid defense. Very few better in the league. Arguably, the attack is the same. Question marks around that number 9 position. I would like another player there, similar to Michael, but I'm not even slightly worried about putting the pressure on Mateo Joseph. He seems to welcome it and want it. He keeps saying, last year it was his talks where I'm training with Patrick, I'm listening to Pat, I'm listening to Pirro, they're telling me these things, I'm working on stuff. This year it's, I'm training a lot on my own to fix the weaknesses in my game. I've been reading books and watching DVDs and streams from other athletes about how they maximize their body types and how they get more out of their training. And I'm on the same level as Pat and Pirro. So there's been a significant change in where his mindset's at this year. I think he'd be absolutely fine. And look, his preseason has been phenomenal. And the goal he scored against Valencia, not only the finish, but the calmness to come back inside, take a touch under pressure and roll it into the corner. The kid's ready to go. And I think we're going to benefit from that. Plug the gaps. And this is a really good window. It's a sensible window again from the 49ers. It's not about spending loads of money. It's about spending the right money on the right player and getting the right profile to get us up. And I think they've so far so good. Just fill those gaps. And this will be a 10 out of 10.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, do we, so, and that was one thing I didn't mention actually, is obviously replacing Crescencio Somerville on the left wing. But what I was wondering is if it comes down to those two, like if we sort of say we can get, sort of a more of a creative 10 type player, something along the lines of what we had, Jorginho doing last year, if he's moving out to the wing, maybe on the right, and Nanto can then take over from Somerville on the left wing. Then we could fill that gap by changing positions around rather than just doing a straight swap winger for winger. Although we could go the other way and say, look, we go and get another replacement winger and then have extra extra wingers around as well. I mean, do you guys have if it's only one or the other, I mean, is there a preference what you think you'd rather do there?
I agree. I think your £25 million replacement for Cree is already in your team. I think it's Jorginho. I think you pops out to the wing and you pull Nanto onto his favorite left-hand side where he wants to play. Yeah. And then you bring in a 10. Maybe Leeds arguably need another number 10 for competition there. I think then you've got Brendan there. You've got 4 players who can all rotate around those front 3, which if you're a defensive team and they start moving around, that's a hell of a problem.
Yeah, I was dreaming about Sara. I thought that he would. I thought there was a chance. I know, Ger, you were saying on your streams that 17 was just out of the question,
too much,
or possibly too much, right? But I just thought a player like that could be, really transformational for the. And the other thing about him is that he knew the system. He knew Farke's system, played in a similar style system, and I might have played under Farke, but yeah. Let's get into the 49ers.
I think it's safe to say that door is shut now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think we'll ever see him, right?
Forever.
Let's get into the 49ers. Ger, and shout out to Brendan Aronson. This is breaking news. He has officially engaged Chris Fox, another American Leeds United fan, retweeted this out, but Brendan is engaged. So congratulations, Brendan, and cheers to you, my friend, on your engagement.
Did it in Harrogate as well.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. That's it. And we'll
congratulations and best wishes to them.
Yeah, it's nice to see something nice for a change. Yeah,
absolutely. Ger, you did a podcast that was released last night because it's Wednesday morning. Wink, wink. And it was on. Let me pull it up here. I have it right here. Basically, the finances of the 49ers, are they stripping assets? You kind of got into some of the details of what's going on. You lifted up underneath the hood, so to speak. But yeah, PSR explained 49ers asset stripping, what the Red Bull investment means, are investors pocketing fees, American ownership in the Prem, which I think is vital. And the future. So just talk a little bit about that. What'd you learn?
Quite a lot. I think I wanted to debunk, not necessarily debunk, I wanted to ask questions that everyone's been asking. There's a lot of rumors in this tweet that keeps going around from random people of we're being asset stripped. And I always kind of laugh when I hear it because I'm like, I'm not very good at math, but I can work out that there's not a lot of money to take. So these are mega, mega rich people, and the volume what we would be producing divisible by the amount of them, there really isn't really worth anything left to take.
You interviewed Kieran Maguire.
Kieran Maguire, yeah. So he's he did a book called The Finance of Football. He's a Finance of Football podcast as well. He's a former administrator, so he would have gone into clubs that were struggling before and done investigations into their books to find out what happens. And in the podcast, he basically says that football clubs are expensive hobbies for most clubs. They don't make a huge amount of money anyway, unless you're in the Premier League. But I wanted to get in, are they asset stripping? No, they're not, because there's a FIFA rule that actually prevents them from taking money from a transfer and then putting that in their back pocket. Leeds have debt that they have to service. So the FIFA ruling basically says if you bring in money from transfers, it has to clear debt before it can be used for anything else. So that's part of that. Also, the big thing that I learned, we've got 80 million to spend. We brought in 80 million this summer. We don't. 80 million divided by 3 years over 3-year payment policies, which is the bulk of clubs do. Leeds probably have about 25 million pounds to spend this summer. So we spent 15 so far. So I've learned that. And then we got into the Premier League stuff as well, just around the voting rights, because it's a private members club in the Premier League. So Todd Bowley has some pretty outlandish ideas of what soccer and football should look like in the Premier League. And I asked, there's 9 owners currently that are American companies or franchise owners within the Premier League right now. If Leeds go into it with the 49ers, that's 10. If that increases to 14, then there's a monopoly of voting rights in the Premier League for American-owned clubs, and they may be able to change rules to benefit them in a way, should we be concerned about that. And he goes into that in a bit more detail as well. Talk about PSR as well, what it is, what we should be worried about going forward. What does Leeds PSR actually look like? Some scary numbers were actually thrown out. When Leeds got relegated from the Premier League, they'd £1.5 million in their bank account. The rest of it was on a credit card. So when we went down from the Premier League, there wasn't a lot. Leeds spending from 2018 to 2019 was like Leeds owed 19 million to clubs in payments for players. By the time we got relegated, that was 170 million that we owed.
Yeah.
So, and even in that, he said Radrazani managed a pretty tight ship and managed it reasonably well. But that tells you the volume of spending that Leeds went into. And when you, as Karen says it, when you buy shit, if it doesn't move you up the table, you're just left with lots of dead assets. So he says Leeds are in a fine position. They're okay. Get out of the division this year. Just get out of the division this year. You know, because next year, if you stay down, your parachute payments drop by 50% down to 15%, and it's a fire sale. You're going to be selling all of your best players. So we have sellable assets, which is positive, he said, but you don't want to lose those players. So I kind of just want to get into what's going on with the money. Do we have the money people think? Are we just, when Daniel Farke says we have limited resources, what does he mean by that? And apparently, if you look at it this way, it's 25 million to spend. That's limited resources. So it's interesting. There's a lot more to it. There's other bits in there as well. And we went down lots of little rabbit holes around what the future of PSR could look like in the league and the UEFA model. And essentially the UEFA are being held to ransom by the European Clubs Association, who just keep threatening to leave unless UEFA relax restrictions every single season. So I think I described it as the UEFA are in an abusive relationship with a handful of top European clubs who keep threatening to leave them unless they get what they want and then do it again and again. So lots of little bits and pieces in it, but we're in a good place financially. We're solid. We're safe. We're spending within our means, which is important, but we're pushing it to the upper limits of that, which what Prague had said before. I did have questions around why the Chris Somerville deal has been put behind a non-disclosure agreement, which is very unusual. And ultimately will probably end up coming out when the financial results are released in January anyway, in some comparison, some parts. So trying to figure out all those bits and pieces. But it was an interesting talk. Kieran knows his stuff. He's a long time around finance, and he has a detailed insight into what Leeds finances are, because he's a spreadsheet in front of him the entire time with all of Leeds financials on them. So might go detail in some areas.
I think the Super League is still on the table. I think they're going to rebrand it, and it won't be called the Super League. It'll be called something else, but something like that tournament will exist. Yep. And I think that the EFL is kind of, or the, specifically the championship is marketing itself as kind of, which isn't an advantage to us, but the little guy. I think they want to see more Lutons. I think they want to see more, little club make it and get a chance to compete with the big boys. And the competition, it's going to be more of like, Michael, like the salary cap model. Like the championship's going to have like this hard salary cap where it's everybody can compete, but the Premier League's going to continue to be, a casino. And, it's going to make it hard for us. So I just think there's a lot, not to put pressure on the squad, as there's already pressure every year to go up, but this is like a very important year to go up. What are your thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's lots of pressure on us to go up for other reasons as well. The fact that, our parachute payments shrink again to a very small level. We still have players on that are on pretty big wages, I think. So there's lots of reasons to go up now. And no, I have every confidence that we can. Honestly, if last year wasn't such an anomaly, we would have, under almost every season in the last decade, we would have gone up first or second. So, I don't have any issues with that. And I think, we might be a little bit weaker this year than we were in terms of player quality in some ways, but I think the league is weaker as well. So I'm not super concerned about it. In terms of the Super League stuff, it's my opinion on it hasn't changed. It's always been go ahead, but if you're leaving, leave. You can't be both. Like if you want to go and do your Super League, go, but don't be bringing this extra Super League money back and just squashing everybody else. with you already have this huge financial advantage. Like, there's no way that it should be allowed to get even bigger than it already is. So if you're going to go. If you're going to stay, but you can't do both. That's been my view of it right from the get-go. What do I care if, Chelsea and Man U or whatever are still in the Premier? I don't care. It doesn't matter to me at all. In fact, it might be better for competition if they're not. So see ya.
The relegation and promotion are sacred. Go ahead.
There is one concern with what they're trying to bring in the Premier League, and it's not fully understood by a lot of people. They're trying to get rid of PNS at a point where it appears PNS is starting to do what it was intended to do, and that's penalise you for overspending. But now everyone wants to get rid of it because they're being docked points and fined money. So now it's not working for them anymore. So they're trying to bring in this new model, and Karen explained this to me as well. It's based around the European model, and it's percentage of revenue. It's 75% of your revenue if you qualify for Europe, and 85% of your revenue if you don't qualify for Europe. So you can spend that on anything. No outgoings taken into consideration. It's just pure revenue that you can spend. But what he said was, if you look at Manchester City, 75% of their revenue last year, which was 750 million, works out at a transfer budget of 562 million every single year. If you take Newcastle, who were pretty close to them, but not right there, they made 250 million profit last year. 75% of that is 187 million. So before a ball is kicked, Manchester City have almost a £400 million advantage in the transfer market than Newcastle do before a ball is ever kicked. So that gap between the clubs that want to be a top six club and the top six is only going to get bigger because their spending is only going to increase. Now, for Leeds, we have a very high revenue. We have one of the highest revenues in the UK, so it would actually help Leeds to move up the table pretty quickly, but there would be a ceiling to it, and a pretty dramatic ceiling when you get there.
7th.
Seventh. That's exactly it. Yeah, bang, done.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Red Bull, Ger? What have you been hearing about the Red Bull investment? And any thoughts? Did it come out to be 10% that they took?
I asked this question as well because I'm trying to figure out where's the Red Bull money gone, because we were told lots of things, and Parag said stuff around every bit of investment we make this year will go straight back onto the pitch. So we're like, great, you just got huge investment from Red Bull. That's going straight on the pitch. We've got loads of money. Not the case. So again, what Kieran said, it depends on what they've done with the shares. If they have bought a percentage of the 49ers shares, then that money is useless to everybody because that's just buying shares of a football club. But if they buy shares from within 49ers shares, if they make more shares within that pool for them to buy, then that money goes directly into the club and can be used. So it's a cash injection. So it depends on which one of those it is. I would be very concerned about some of the historical stuff with Red Bull in terms of Leipzig and Salzburg, and especially with Salzburg and what they tried to do there by renaming the club and deleting its history. And that was rolled back on. Eventually it was rolled back on. They didn't do it. There's all the concerns in the UK around, well, they'll become Red Bull Leeds and they'll change the badge. And there are things in place to stop that, but football changes. And, again, we've talked about the American ownership. And if they want to go down a franchise route and they've got the voting rights, then things can change. But what I would say is in the short term, I think it's a very good investment because it's a global brand sponsorship at a time when gambling sponsorship is about to be made illegal. Leeds have got a pretty big sponsor. Clubs are going to be looking for like Coca-Colas and Pepsis and whatever else to fill that gap. Leeds have already got one. But at the same time, I wouldn't take my second eye of what they're doing behind the scenes because they've not bought a small percentage of Leeds United to stay as a small percentage of Leeds United. They've bought a percentage of Leeds United to, at some point when the 49ers reach that magic valuation they want to get to, then that's when that changeover happens and they become the owners, in my opinion. I don't care about the red and the kit. Also, I don't care about the Bulls.
Michael, RB West Yorkshire or what? Should we be safe or what?
Red Bull Beastin', baby. Red Bull Beastin'. It's gonna happen. I think it is. I don't think it's gonna happen imminently, but I agree completely with Jared that they didn't buy into the club to sit on the sidelines and be the silent partners. I mean, they did what the 49ers did. They bought into the club to eventually be the owners of the club when the current owner decides to sell. It's the exact same thing the 49ers did with us with Rads, right? They bought in, they bought their 10%, they sat there as silent partners. They increase their shareholding every once in a while, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Now it's time to go. We're gonna take over." So I think that's exactly what's going on. Now, who knows if Red Bull will do the same thing that it's done in the past. I mean, I think they've had some change to their approach as well. I mean, even just looking at their footballing side of things, they've sort of relaxed on that element of it and have sort of allowed other things to develop. So would they rename the entire team? Would they do all that stuff this time around? I don't know if they would. I don't know if they would have to. I mean, this is Leeds United we're talking about, so the branding is already there. Do they need to change it? I don't know. As long as they, if they can stick their name on the stadium, they can have their shirt on their Bulls on the front of the shirt. Is that going to be enough for them as owners? Possibly. I don't know. It's hard to say. But I'm not going to be too concerned about it yet. I guess we'll see what they do. But as someone I know remarked, eventually we're going to have, Red Bull Beeston versus, Leeds City FC or whatever, Redux. And, a lot of Leeds fans will be going over to some new club because I don't want anything to do with the Bulls. I also don't care about the Bulls on the front of the shirt. Whatever, man.
How to make a one club city a two club city? Red Bull investment.
That's
there.
it.
Bang.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think the 49ers I think it's a hedge on their investment. I think they need to get this club to the Premier League to make money. I think the Yorks need to see big returns. The original purchase was as a Premier League club. They had to restructure it. And there was a big delay, obviously, last year in the purchase. So I think they are hedging a little bit. I think Phil Hay said something about if you in one of his last articles, if you're picking a club to do this to if you're going to rebrand, it's like the worst club that you could pick because Leeds United fans are so invested in the history of the club and how the badge looks and the revolt that happens when things aren't right.
So killing their own investment if they make those kinds of changes.
If they do that kind of change, right?
Yeah, and they have to know that. They're not dumb. I'm sure they'll know that.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll see. Let's get back to the squad. I'm interested. There's a couple of players, Ger, that I'm interested in your opinion on. Young players, up and coming players. Mateo Joseph's kind of right there, about to break out. There's a couple of guys that have been part of Farke's plans early that I'm a little impressed by. And sorry, just trying to get their names. Where am I at? The DeBayo?
DeBayo, yeah.
The center back and Charlie Crew. What have you seen from them? What do you think?
Good group. They're from most of them from last year's 18s outside DeBayo. Crew was part Sam Chambers and Luca Thomas, who you would have seen in pre-season, were all very important players to the under 18 side. They got to the FAU Cup final. Interesting to see they've jumped straight over the under 21s and kind of gotten involved in first team training. DeBayo is a solid centre back, has been a pretty solid centre back, has played a lot of under 21 football as well. Surprised that he's the one that's kind of made the step up. He's not the one the name that you heard coming out of the camp at Leeds. He kind of just got on and did his job, but did it very well. Everyone's been asking about Monteiro. Where is he? When is he going to be in the first team? And DeBayo has just bypassed him. And he looks very, very solid, what we've seen of him so far. There are a bigger group behind that. Obviously, Harry Gray went with them as well, and he's 15 years of age, and he's in the first team squad. So, again, a Gray, which eases the loss of Archie a tad, give him the same number so we can deal with the adjustment much easier, But you've got a few more beneath that as well. You have Louis Perry, you have Josh McDonald, who came in from Scotland last year to under 18-7. They're both very, very, very good. You've got Marley Wilson, who's an old school number 9 for me, big, strong kid, holds the ball up well, missed a big portion of last season with growing pains. He basically took a stretch and hurt his spine. So he's back this year as well. So there's a strong group of young kids coming through, and the 16s look pretty decent, and so do the 15s. So the conveyor belt is moving again in Thorpe Arch. But I think DeBayo will be on the fringes. I think he might fill the Charlie Creswell role. Charlie Crew, I think, will get a lot more minutes. He's a full Welsh international now at 18, which is, again, crazy to think that he's done that. Not the same kind of player as Archie Gray. Does like a tackle. Possibly needs to like a tackle a little bit less. Just a little bit less. But but a very, very tidy footballer as well. And he'll get minutes this year. I think he'll be in and about around the midfield, especially in cup matches. You've got a good few there. Now, if one or two of them make it, that's a good year. That's a very, very good year if one or two of them come through. And if you can bring one or two through every single year, you're saving yourself millions and millions of pounds in transfer fees. So, and then there's young Harry Christie, a goalkeeper as well. It was a good young goalkeeper, but there is a younger goalkeeper who plays for the 18s called Rory Mahady or Mahadi, depending on what part of the UK you're in. He's very good. Very, very, very good. Again, came down from Scotland last year. Played the semi-final of the Youth Cup against Liverpool in an advanced to number 6 role for the bulk of the first half of the game. He was pretty much picking the ball up on the centre circle as the goalkeeper and spraying passes around the place like Calvin used to do as a goalkeeper. And then his distribution is very good, handling is very good, and he talks a lot. He's a very vocal goalkeeper. So he's the one for me to keep an eye on of that crop coming in. He's got a couple of more years. But if we're looking for a decent young goalkeeper, he's the one I would be keeping an eye on if he keeps developing the way he is. But they're all very good. I like the fact that Sam Chambers is around it. He's a very direct, fast winger. And Luca Thomas is a bit trickier and likes to run at people. Very skillful player, will get goals. And again, there's another guy called Josh Snowden who's just a bit in around that pack, but outside of injuries that he had last year, which have kind of slowed his development a little bit, he's a goal-getter. He's a really, really creative player. So there's a lot of really good, exciting young players, but really good coaches there as well, it should be said. So the future's very bright for us, Alex, and the fact that they're involved so significantly in what I already think is a stronger Leeds United squad so far is a really strong testament to what they're doing at Thorpe Arch at the moment with these players.
Anybody on the youth catching your eye, Michael, on the youth teams, youth side?
Well, I agree with what Ger said. I think Charlie Crew is the one to watch. I think he's the one that's going to make the most, get the most minutes. I think in the first team of all the young guys coming through. Certainly, I would hope that he's starting cup matches and stuff. But I think he's going to be coming in off the bench and stuff during league matches as well. So definitely the one to watch. I agree. He is impressive. For his age. Obviously, we had Archie last year. If we didn't have Archie last year, then he might have been the player coming on more often at that point, potentially. So there's really so much room, and Archie was doing different stuff, but and yeah, they're definitely not the same player at all. But yeah, I'm happy with that, and also was surprised, I think, as well, just to see DeBayo come in and do as well as he's doing. But I think as well, there's certainly potential there for some minutes in the senior team this season. I also have to say I agree with Ger about the younger crop too. I mean, it is exciting, and it does look like we have the potential to have one or two new players coming through for at least for the next few seasons, and who knows what's going on behind them even. But yeah, I think that's a good way to go. It's interesting that we had so many youth players before that looked like they were primed and ready to come through, and a lot of them just sort of haven't. They kind of hit the ceiling, and then that was it. And that was kind of the Victor Order approach to things, which I didn't disagree with when he was doing it. And I'm not even sure that I disagree with him having done it now, because we can look at it and say, wow, that was a dud, and that ended up being a dud, and that guy was a dud, and there's lots of duds. But then again, we just sold Somerville for 25 million plus, right? So, and Pascal Strauch is in there as well as a vice captain and stuff now, right? So. Yeah. When we're buying those guys that are not quite there but almost there, you can strike gold with them. But I'm going to be glad to see some at least one or two players coming through every year. As Ger said, it's going to save you a lot of money doing that. And then, of course, if you have to do the whole Archie thing and sell them, and I hate talking about kids this way, but it's pure profit, so you kind of have to, right? It is a business.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Greenwood, Gelhardt. Maybe Cresswell that didn't quite pop as much as we thought maybe, and Archie or Cree did. I want to talk a little bit about 4-0, 5-0 in the in the friendlies. Quite honestly, remarkable. Very sharp, right? The patterns of play. I think the passing is so much crisper than maybe we even saw in the mid-season championship. It's just very, very crisp passing. A lot of teams came out to play against us, A lot of teams came out to play football against us in terms of, they came out against us, pressed us, and we like that.
We know Valencia did.
We know Leeds United. We got we got 12 points right off of last year off of Leicester and Ipswich, and we played well. We struggled when the opposing team nicked the goal and then decided to park a bus or go into a block of some sort. And it's difficult, as Jerry always say, it's difficult to break down a block. That's why people install blocks. So I don't know how tested we were in that area, but one individual on my channel said, and shout out to Martin. He said that Bielsa always had terrible friendlies, and we go to the season's terrible. But the season kicked on, and it was obviously beautiful football except for the last one. So just what do you guys think in terms of the system year 2, Farke? What are you looking forward to? I mean, you'd rather have it be going successfully than not. So what's your takes on that? Go ahead, Ger.
Yeah, different kind of pressure on Farke this year. There's an expectation where last year at this stage we were going through a takeover, didn't have a manager, half our signings weren't in, and we'd lost 14 players that were in the team the previous year. They're not there this year. You've had a full year with the squad. You know these players better than anybody at this point. You're a proven manager to get out of this division. You have a whole new type of pressure from the fan base this year. And you need to see a different style of play from Leeds this year, because as you've rightly said, Alex, there were moments this last season where if a low block came in, and look, it's just science. It's very hard for matter to run through other matter. And if you just get in the way, it's half the job. Leeds needed other ways to unlock defenses. And I think we've already started to see a few different variations. We've seen a 3-4-3 system tried out against Harrogate, getting glimpses of it against Valencia as well. So there's a different option there with wing backs and tucking your wide players in to be 10s, which I think is where having a Georgie, a Nonto and a Brendan Aronson works really, really well, because they can play inside very comfortably as well as outside. Trying to keep them outside is probably a problem sometimes. So it works really, really well. But you've also seen something, and the Harrogate game is probably not the best example. Or was it the Hanover game where Brendan did the no-look pass, checked pass between the two centre-backs? We didn't try that once last year. So already there's somebody in there that will look for a different type of ball. Yep. With Joe Rothwell coming in as well, we're seeing different kind of pass things going in, higher bent balls in behind the defence. I think we've seen a difference, a variation in build-up and play against Valencia. There were times against Valencia where it was a quick ball to the fullback, and then before Valencia had a chance to drop the ball, put him behind him along the ground, down the line, around the back of them for Mateo to run after. So there's different ways of doing it this year, and we needed that. But the big thing for me is tempo. If we can play high-tempo football this year, we will tear teams apart. And if you are one of those teams that wants to come out and play against Leeds, God help you next season. Because I said last year we would tear somebody apart, and we didn't really, except for Norwich. I think if you want to come out and play against us this year, we'll rip you apart. And I think there will be a more ruthless streak there as well. Or at least I hope there will be. But everything I've seen so far, and I always say don't read into preseason friendlies, but I'm reading an incredible amount into the preseason friendly because it's been positive and I want to. So if we see that on the pitch, if we get the same kind of stuff against Portsmouth the weekend, that's the first one. Go and set a marker down for the rest of the season. 6 points in the first month of the season is already a better month than last season. So yeah, high tempo football, move around quicker. We've got different variations on set pieces. I like that Groove is playing a more advanced role. I like that a lot. I think he's enjoying it. Leads of options, and they've got different types of players, where last year with Kamara in there, you've kind of got similar type of player in there. So if you need to change it, you've got possession-based footballers, and that's about it. So this year we've got a little bit of a variation. You add one more to that, a Ljubitic or whoever else has been linked, a more box-to-box dynamic player, and you have another option again. And that just variation is brilliant in sport, because if it's not working, you've got really good options to change it completely without overhauling the entire formation of the team. So I've been really encouraged what we've seen so far, but I want to see this come into the season, and they can't say anything about excuses this year. I don't want to hear judge us at the end of August when the window's closed. I will anyway, but we have to be ready for the start of the season. And if we're not ready for the start of the season, we have nobody to blame this year except for ourselves. So
Yep.
I don't think it'll happen. I like the squad. I like what we've got outside of someone throwing their dummy out of the pram or their toys out of the pram. I think we'll be in a really good spot.
Michael, Farke, year 2. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I think to go a little bit of Moneyball on it. I think when we look at Crescencio Somerville and how much he meant to us last season, and the goals and the assists and everything else he did, we became very, very reliant on him. And I think a lot of you say, well, how do you replace a guy like that? And I say, well, we try to replace him in the aggregate. And I think that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to be less reliant on just Somerville to do things and try to spread things out more. And I think that's going to force Farke to be more creative, to try different things. I think we became much too predictable at times last season, especially at the end of the season when everyone's sort of jockeying at the end, and we had such a big fall off at the end of the season. Our season was bookended by garbage football, frankly, at the start and at the end. It wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't great, and we weren't getting results. And even just going into the final at Wembley, it was not, it wasn't a great watch. We weren't playing well, and we didn't really look like we were up to that much. So I think, having that kind of a change is going to enforce you to do something else. We're going to force you to do something else. And I think we are seeing that we're actually looking at trying different things now, instead of just saying, default, give it to Somerville and see what happens. I also think, and it's interesting, and who knows what it's going to be like, but Jorginho looks sharper now. I mean, he was always great with the tricks and the dribbling and stuff, but that finish that he had as well was spectacular. There's no way he was scoring that last season, not like that. So, I think if players like that are stepping up now, and
that was a filthy goal, is what the word you're looking for to give it its proper title. That was
dirty. Absolutely, it was disgusting. Everything he did was just raunchy in that game, man. It was fantastic. Look, he's capable of doing that, but I think we're going to see now. I think he's going to be more settled in. I think they're going to have a different mindset. Firpo gave that interview, and he made a lot of comments that made me think that these guys have a really good mindset going into this season. Certainly he does, and I imagine everyone else is feeling the same way. They know they have to get it done. This isn't to quote Josh Donaldson, baseball, right? It's not the try league; it's the get it done league, and that's what we have to do now. We have to get it done.
Get it done. I'm out of questions. Is there anything you guys wanted to talk about we didn't cover?
What do you want from the end of the window, Alex?
Yeah. I think ideally that 10. Who is the gentleman we were looking at from Coventry? His name's
O'Hare.
O'Hare. I mean, he was another 10. I think there is some interest there in the 10, and obviously maybe the 49ers and the leadership at Leeds United are going to plan B with the now probably pretty solid rumors with Rowe. I think that we have to hold on to specifically Ruter, and maybe Nanto's important as well. But yeah, I think there's just one more kind of attacking player that can unlock. It's tough to get, right? And Pablo is tough he's never been replaced because it's hard to replace Pablo. But when you look at Cree and you look at Pablo, you need a player, I think, on a promotion run that is going to give you something when you don't see anything. It's not coming. It's and Pablo was able to give that to us in the promotion. Like if we needed assists, we needed a goal, he was there. And St. Cree similar, where there was a moment, it's like we gotta have a goal, we gotta get a goal. Cree would be there. So we need a player like that. And maybe it's Nanto's time, or maybe it's Ruter's time, because honestly, like you've said, I mean, the replacement, the Crescencio Somerville replacement is probably already on the squad. it's probably one of those two gentlemen. So I'd like to see an attacking player, obviously fullback depth as well. I feel comfortable in midfield, but that's fine if you sign a box to box player. But that's where I'm at. And look, it's maybe I'm hopeful, right? As everybody is. Hopefully, this is a boat race. This is over by January. Not over, but something like you'd like to see from like Leicester got last year, where you're just the lead is very insurmountable, and there's probably not the depth, at least in the top 6 of the championship. So that's where I'm at. But what we'll see starting Saturday, the 10th, packed out Ellen Road. So
excited. I've actually not been this excited for a start of a season since I think the year we got promoted. I'm really excited about this season. I don't know why, but I am. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what we do on the pitch, just again based off what we've seen so far.
The yellow kit?
I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Don't sell,
Michael, did you get one?
I haven't bought one yet.
You haven't bought one yet?
You?
We have. Jer and I both have. We were joking. I messaged you, Jer, and you said, we'll get mine shipped too. And Jer says, we'll get it by Christmas.
Yeah, should arrive at Christmas at some stage.
Customs. I got I didn't even think they gave me a tracking order. They're like, it was sent. I was like, great. Like.
Hopefully it doesn't end up at the bottom of the ocean like those ones a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you saw what they looked like when that tie-dye one came out, you're like, it belongs on the bottom of the ocean. It should have stayed there. It was a sign from the gods. Leave it. Just leave it.
Yeah. The blue cheese.
Horrible, wasn't it?
What was the line at the podcast?
Angus.
I can't remember. No, they said All at Sea was like the title of this podcast.
Oh yeah.
The main one, the biggest Leeds podcast. Square Ball. Yeah. All at Sea. After that came out, all the shipping container Leeds United kits, shipping containers fell over. So gentlemen, I appreciate your time, and we'll continue to chat throughout the course of the season. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm going to try to jump on. Jer, I know you have the weekly podcast. I got invited once or twice, and I just hadn't had a chance to come on. And I love this community. I think we
guys are always welcome. By the way, if you guys have any gaps in your week and you want to come on and talk football about Leeds, just send me a message saying you want to come on. I will happily have you guys on anytime.
Oh,
fun. That sounds good.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Before we go,
do
we want to do like a season prediction on yet or what? We haven't kicked the ball yet.
As to where we'll finish?
Yeah.
Top.
Back up the boat, right? HMS Pistol League, right?
Let's go. Let's
going
go.
up as champions, right?
That's it.
Going up as champions.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will, like I said, we'll continue this conversation. Follow Maynard, Michael Maynard. He is Maynard M on Twitter. Great Leeds United account. And Ger Lynch. I mean, Leeds United The View, Ger Lynch on Twitter. Starting up if you're a TikToker, follow him on TikTok. And honestly, biggest thing to do right now is what I'm going to do after I'm done cooking dinner and washing the dishes is go to his podcast with Kieran McGuire and look a little bit under the finances at Leeds United, talk a little bit about the health of the squad. So go check that out. I'm sure that's on your YouTube channel as well as Spotify, Ger. I'm just going to throw it out there that it is.
Not Spotify yet, but it will be by this time tomorrow.
You're the top guy for subscriptions now, aren't you, Ger?
You what?
You're the top channel for subscriptions now.
Yeah, apparently.
YouTube. Yeah.
That's the rumor.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so.
And for good reason. So if you haven't yet, definitely go and subscribe.
Absolutely. Thanks. The one thing I say about Ger is he does his homework. That's what you appreciate as a Leeds United fan. It's not just necessarily clickbait. He will tell you whether it's a grain of salt, whether there's actual, hey, this has got some legs, and you got some sort of foundation in terms of what you can expect is obviously on the transfer side, but anything else as well. So appreciate you, Ger, and thanks for what you do for the community. I will see you guys the next time. Marching on together. Bye.